All right, welcome to the Bow Trader Podcast. Whether you're a long-time listener or joining us for the first time, man, I'm glad you're here. My name's John Keene, and I am the founder of Bow Trader, and we're just excited to be able to do this podcast and bring this to you on a weekly basis. You know, on the podcast, we're diving headfirst into the wild world of hunting and the great outdoors. We talk about all kind of different things, whether it's tracking and scouting tactics or just cutting up and telling silly tales and stories about things that we've gotten into when we've been out there trying to do some hunting. But we're always focused on the beauty of God's creation. From gear reviews and how to practice to finally making it to that awesome thwack of fall, buddy, we are here for it. Our faith is woven into every episode with real, down-to-earth discussions because it's not just about the hunt. It's truly about what matters most. So grab your gear, settle in, get you a cup of coffee, and let's get after it. Okay, here we go. Listen, you hear that?
There's no liquid death being
That's
over.
Exactly right. It's not there. It's not there.
Sorry, Dub. Sorry you feel bad, buddy.
Yep. So Dub's not here this morning, so we didn't get our what has apparently become the signature Papa Top there.
Yeah, that's funny.
Anyway, yeah, I think he's on his. I think he's on the last day of whatever he's got.
Yeah, good.
So, but anyway, you know, Dub, when he gets sick, man, he usually burns hot.
Really?
I mean, he'll get a fever and he'll hit 101 just randomly. It's like, you know, used to freak us out.
Yeah.
I mean, not when he was like really little. It wouldn't. Well, I guess it would freak us out. The second kid's always you're like,
I'd be all right.
yeah, you're
Yeah,
good.
the third one, you're like,
Wait,
we have a kid? Wait a minute. We got another kid?
Yeah. So anyway, but yeah, he's not. He's under the weather this morning. I woke him up and he was like, I said, bud, you just get some more sleep.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, all right. So today we are going to talk about seasons of life.
Yeah.
You know, we talk about hunting seasons all the time. We love hunting season, whatever it is, whether it's turkey season or quail season or deer season or whatever it is. We've got all these seasons that we love. And, you know, when we really stop and think about it, we're living through seasons as well. And whereas our hunting seasons are very defined,
Yeah.
you know, we know what day is going to open and we know what day it's going to close. The seasons we go through in life are not as defined for us, right? Like, so I've got two kids and a wife, and my kids are 20 and going to be 17 here in a couple months. And like, I knew when I was going to see my child for the first time, right? And I knew I was going to be changing diapers and all that kind of stuff. But I didn't know when I was going to change my last diaper. You know, I didn't know when that season was going to end.
Yeah.
It's just like, you know, dang, it's over. You know, I was not sad that was over. Let me clarify that. Let me clarify that. But it's, you know, you go through these seasons that you don't know how long you're going to be in a particular season. You don't know what it's going to look like, how it's going to affect the rest of your life. Because I can tell you right now, at 17 and 20, 16 and 20, things are a whole lot different than it was when it was 2 and 4.
Yeah.
Right?
I get that.
So let's talk through that this morning.
For sure.
You know, in an effort to, I mean, we want to build you guys up. We want to build everybody up that's going to listen to this and help you to persevere, right? To get to a place where you realize, you know, regardless of what you're going through, it's a season. You know, it's not the way it's going to be forever and ever. Amen. You know, that's just not the way. That's not the way this world works.
No, absolutely.
You know, so let's talk through that and what it looks like, and we can start wherever y'all want to.
Yeah.
You know, I've kind of laid the groundwork of what it looks like.
I mean, you hit on a chord because I've got James's 2.5. He'll be 3 in July. We've just hit the milestone of potty training, and he is, I mean, as of right now, he hadn't missed.
It's good aim.
Yeah, good aim, and 1 in 2, and everything's going as smoothly as possible.
There you go.
It's been a blessing, but like you said, I didn't know when my last diaper for him was going to be.
And it sounds silly to even say.
No,
something like that.
It does, but
Right.
but really, when you think about it, like we're in the my wife and I are in the thick of it. We got a 2.5-year-old, almost 3-year-old, and then a 9-month-old baby girl.
Yeah.
That's like on the verge of crawling and standing up and all the things. But like those little moments in time, like they're big milestones, but they're also, like we're talking about, these transitional times where we're sleep deprived and busy with work and trying to be a actually functioning married couple, to where we're communicating properly, but then we have these 2 humans we're trying to keep alive and nourished and all
We're
the
talking
things.
about you and Tara.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Sometimes it feels like that's all you're doing.
It's
It's
literally
just keeping everybody alive,
Just
right?
make sure everyone's alive and breathing.
Oh
but-
my gosh. Yeah.
So, yeah, no, it is. It's crazy. And I think for the season we're in right now with James and just kind of I mean, he's just a little man, and it's just
he's
crazy.
cool, man.
It's just crazy to see the little transitions and stuff like that, and what he picks up, and now Madeline, she's not talking or anything, but like she sees a dog and like she's like doing stuff. And
She's got something to say. She
she's
just
got
don't know how to
stuff.
say
She
it.
doesn't know how to say it, but
Personality's
it's
coming
coming
out.
out, and it's just
Yeah.
like so cool to see that. So,
Yeah.
um,
So how does that affect? All right. So you talked a lot about what it looks like, in your nuclear family right now, what all those things look like, all these moving pieces that you've got going on. How's it affecting every other part of your life?
oh yeah, no,
All right. So James is 2.5. So obviously Jace and Tara are not living the same way they were 3 years ago,
absolutely not.
3.5 years ago. Right.
Yeah, we were very selfish, and I think that's one thing with kids. You realize how selfish you are, or just self-centered you are.
Selfish is good.
Selfish
It's
is
okay.
good.
We're here for you. Bro.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I think, I mean, just speaking on the like doing the things that I love, hunting and fishing and all the things. If you were to have met me 7 to 10 years ago, it was every weekend I was hunting or fishing in some destination, or locally. We were talking about it earlier. I've turkey hunted twice, in Georgia, this season thus far, and it's the 24th of April. So between work and the season of life, things transition. I would have probably already limited out with a 3 turkey limit, probably if
Right,
3
yeah.
kids, but
Yeah.
not a brag or anything, but just like the amount of time I was able to spend doing what I loved was a lot more time. Whereas now I've got little blips on the radar of what I'm able to do. And fortunately, my wife recognizes that and allows me to still do some of that, even though it's a sacrifice.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say the transition from pre-marriage to just Tara and I, and then now with kids, that those 3 stages have been pretty abrupt across the board for the most part. But temporarily, it stinks, but I know down the road I'll be able to take James and Madeline with me in the woods and hunt and fish and do all the things. It's just it'll be their time, not my time. So I'm really excited about that. James has already got him. I got him a little play shotgun, and he already walking in the backyards acting like he's shooting woodcock and quail with the bird dog. So I'm looking forward to that season of life too, and that'll be another transition of introducing them, immersing them into God's creation. So
That's good.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Brandon, what about you? Where are you at right now?
So I'm on kind of the opposite end of the spectrum. So I've got one who's already out of the house, engaged, getting married in October. Got another one who will be moving out in about a month and a half. And then I've got a 14-year-old. So I've got a lot of time, that if we're not at a ball game or practicing baseball, I'm a lot more freed up than I've been in years and years to go. But I remember the stage that Jace is talking about where I really didn't even hunt.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Until my oldest got to be 3 or 4, probably 3. And I would carry him into a ground blind. And usually he would fall asleep on the way to the hunting club in the afternoon. I would carry him in on my shoulder, take a sleeping bag, take some gummy bears and something for him to do, a coloring book or something, and we'd sit in the ground blind together. And we actually ended up killing a couple of deer that way, and I was like, oh, that's just kind of the bonus,
Yeah.
But just being in the woods and him experiencing that, us doing that together was really cool. But that was about the limit of my hunting at that time. And so you go through those seasons, and now some of the guys that I turkey hunt with and deer hunt with, they're in the season you're in. Mm-hmm. And so, it's always, hey, let me see if I can get a pass,
Let me cash my tokens.
Yeah. Let me see if I've built up enough, tokens to cash those in.
Yeah.
But it's a different season where I do get to go more, and they can go kind of when they want to, and
They being who? The kids?
The kids.
Your boys? Yeah.
And so it's just a different season. So I do get to hunt a good bit, and I enjoy that. And the thing that I've seen is every season's different, but every season's like got its own aspects that are special about it. So, when my boys were 1, 4, and 7, that was a fun season. When they were, 5, 8, and 11, that was a real fun season, and now as they're getting older, it's still good seasons. It's just different. I talked before we started the podcast, we're renovating a house for my son and his fiance to move into when they're married. And so you just have all these different things that are happening. And I think the thing that's challenging for a lot of people is what you said, Jace, is giving up those things that you like because it's not about you anymore. And having your first child exposes that more than anything else, because you realize it's not about you anymore. And being able to say no to those things. And it's not that you have to just become a recluse and stay at home and never do anything, but the priority is now kids and family.
Making sure family's good and all that.
And I remember when we had our oldest, man, it was like I couldn't take a nap when I wanted to. I couldn't go hunting when I wanted to. I couldn't go fishing when I wanted to. I couldn't go play golf when I wanted to. And I was like,
or you do try to go do those things, and it's an absolute dumpster fire.
Yeah.
It's just like absolutely your plans are to go and do and enjoy, and you end up breaking the tip off your fishing rod or spending the whole time like just not doing what you want to do. But again, like you're saying, the focus isn't in that season is not on you.
That's right. And you get it's funny because a lot of times young people before they're married, they think they're busy. And
it's definitely,
and I mean, really,
because you don't have any perspective on anything else.
And I talked to a lot of college students at the church, and like, man, I'm so busy, and I'm like, shut up,
be quiet,
and I'm like,
zero responsibility.
I get it, because I remember the stress of finals. I remember taking that last final and we were on quarter system, but I remember taking that last final and not even care if I passed. It's like, it's just over, and like I remember that feeling of thinking I was busy, but you weren't. And when you have a kid and you're up 2-3 times a night, and unless your wife's breastfeeding or whatever, you're making bottles, and like y'all talked about not knowing when you changed the last diaper, or for me it was when I made the last bottle. Like those are things that, man, I was at a restaurant the other day and there was a little girl screaming her head off, and she's sweet as she could be, but you could tell she was worn out. And I was like, don't miss it. I just don't. I don't mean that bad,
no,
but
I
I'm
get
like,
it.
don't miss it.
I get it.
And you get to this stage where, like, you go from being just like dad to being advisor almost, and just a more of a voice in their life versus telling them or showing them what to do. You're more of advice giver, in a way.
Yeah.
And I think that goes with a lot of transitions in life. You move from being the doer to the one who tries to give wisdom to people, So, but yeah, those seasons are quick and they're changing. And I remember getting 2-3 hours sleep at night and thinking, I cannot do this for the rest of my life. And I didn't realize it is a season. Like you said,
It's hard to feel it and see it when you're in the middle of it.
When you're in the thick of it.
So I was told this when I was younger, before kids came along, and it was, or as we're getting ready, preparing for Allie to be born, people would tell me it's going to go by fast.
Yeah.
Right. Don't get stressed about little stuff. Don't get overwhelmed, because it's going to be over before you know it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, these people are crazy.
This is taking forever.
For the first 5 years, for the first 5 years or first, 4 years or whatever, I'm like, man, she can't even throw a football.
Yeah.
What do you mean this is going to blow by? And then, I look back on it now and I'm like, where in the world did the time go?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just the seasons of life. It's, there's a season for everything, and it goes by. It does go by quick, but life goes by quick. And the Bible tells us that life's like a vapor. It's here today and gone tomorrow. And, you think about how many billions and billions or trillions of people have gone before us. And, we're going to be the same way. And so it's quick. And unfortunately, I think we spend a lot of our time worried about things that don't really matter.
Don't really matter at all.
So many frivolous things rob our joy that they don't matter in the long run. And I had a friend of mine tell me one time, I thought it was great advice. He said, if it's not going to matter in 30 to 60 days, don't worry about it. And I thought it's pretty good advice.
Pretty sound. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cause the situation you're in today, like you're saying, if you think about it long term, you're like, is this really even going to matter? Or am I even going to remember this little thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's really good. Yeah, I think the season like Tara and I are in is we're really trying to focus on nurturing and guiding our kids and giving and just putting them in environments to where they scrape their knees or they're doing things and teaching them, but we're also really trying to focus on our relationship.
Yeah.
I think one thing that is really hard when you're in a season like we're in where we've got young kids is you constantly focused on the kids, and it's the kids and the kids that all your schedule is completely around them, but then you forget, I'm married to this person, and you feel like you're on other sides of the world, but trying to maintain that and have date nights and realize that we are in the thick of it. It is but just a blip on the radar in the long term when you're looking at it long term, but John, just like you were saying, like when you're in it, you're like, man, this is seasons forever.
Yeah.
But
they all feel like
they all feel like that. And then you blink your eyes and yeah, you're past it, or you look back and you laugh and you're like, wow, that was pretty funny. Pretty interesting time. So, but yeah, trying to be present in the moment, be excited about what's to come, but to also kind of use the time that you have, or to make that time, and to utilize that in a positive way. We had men's group last night and, kind of reflected on that. We've been working through Acts and, just Paul's, we're kind of on the tail end of Acts and really seeing Paul's ministry. And, I think one thing that we can kind of take from his ministry is just the selfless acts of knowing that God's got him, even though there's a couple of times where he's thrown in jail and on the verge of being killed. Last night we were in Acts 23, and there were 40 Jews that committed to not eating or drinking until Paul died.
Yeah,
and we were talking last night, like, holy smokes, like
that's some serious.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah. We also went on the topic of like, did they end up dying or starvation because he didn't die?
I'm sneaking a Snicker bar.
Yeah,
I'm like, let's not eat.
How committed are you?
Around the corner, like,
you're not yourself when you're hungry. But either way, we were just talking through like that of like,
I wonder they were mad.
Yeah, I'd be mad too. But just knowing like Paul very easily, I mean, he could have, I mean, for him in that season, he was committed to God either way, but the selfless act of like letting God guide him, and he ends up getting through the night, having guarded soldiers take him to a Roman city. And just, it's just cool to see like you can be in the thick of the thick, but God's going to have you if you're committed and you're living a life for him and through him. So I don't know, it's kind of came
good. Yeah.
You know, we look at our child rearing days, and we look at our families, and you know, you talked about, you know, you're kind of trying to do things to put your kids in situations where, you know, James might skin his knee or whatever. Madeline's not doing that yet.
Not yet. No.
I mean, really, you're still at the stage where you're having to do everything.
Oh yeah,
for them.
Yeah,
because they are incapable of doing anything for themselves.
Feed, bath time,
everything.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's all.
Yeah, James hadn't had a mishap yet with his potty training, with his bathroom, with his new bathroom routine. You know, but it's coming.
Oh yeah, no, it will have
because there's going to be a time where you're not able to get him to the bathroom fast enough, or whatever, you know, something's going to come up and it's going to slip your mind. It's not going to happen to Tara. It's going to happen to Jace.
Oh, it'll happen to me for sure.
I'm just going to let you know how this is going to go.
Oh, I know. Right? I already know. Every time I'm with her, she's like, make sure he goes to the bathroom.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I have like 30 other things I thought I needed to do.
Right.
The bathroom was like on the back of the.
It's natural. It's going to come one way or the other, buddy. Whether you remember or not, it's going to come. You know, but so you're at that place where you're doing everything right now. You and I are at the place where I heard somebody put it that being a parent is like occupying another country, right?
Yeah.
So
that's pretty much what my house feels like.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes hostile. Sometimes it's a hostile occupation. Sometimes it's a friendly occupation, right? But you've done things to get that country to a place where it can support itself.
That's right.
So you start pulling back.
Yes.
Right? And that's natural. That's what we should be doing. That's the whole goal, is to help these little human beings become adult human beings that are productive.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which means they can start doing what we've done for them.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, you don't have the joy of having a daughter.
No. I we got 3 boys, so it'd be different.
So the way boys and girls are very different. I don't care what anybody says.
Well, yeah.
And this isn't a sports
According
thing.
to
This isn't a sports thing. This isn't a political thing.
no, we
This
can
is-
make it work.
Yeah,
we can.
We can.
It would be very easy, but boys and girls are very different. So, and so when I'm going through and I'm my wife and I, we're working to lead our daughter. She looks to us for a lot.
Yeah.
She wants to have our input. She wants her mom's input. Her best friend's her mom. I remind her all the time, I'm not her friend,
Yeah.
but her best friend is her mom. I do that gently when I tell her that.
Yeah, just
I don't even like you.
Now, yeah, right. Now with my son, I remind him all the time I'm not his friend, and I don't care if I hurt his feelings. Right. And the difference with him, so you've got this nation that you're occupying, and your desire is to pull back and to make a withdrawal and to do it, in a very strategic and ordered fashion. With boys, they start trying to take things earlier.
Yeah.
They're like, nope, this part's mine. Get out.
Yeah.
I'm claiming.
Yeah,
here.
I'm putting my flag right here. You don't touch this anymore, Dad.
Yeah.
And they try to do it too soon.
Yeah.
Girls don't do that.
Yeah.
In my experience, and I'm not just talking about with my daughter.
Yeah.
They'll test waters in other ways, but they don't do that. And boys do. And I know that you can vouch for that because you've got three of them.
I even, it's funny because boys are like my dog Remo. So every now and then, he and I have
whom he loves dearly.
yeah,
Remo.
probably as much as my kids. But my kids cost me money. Remo makes me money.
That's right.
But so every now and then we have to have this come to Jesus moment, right? Of where he starts stretching the boundaries a little bit. He doesn't want to necessarily come to me when I call, or he wants to, and he just gets a hard-headed streak of wanting to kind of do his things and have to reestablish, like, you don't call the shots.
Baseline.
Yeah.
This is what we're
just get
doing.
back to this. And once we do that, it's good. And I think boys are very similar in that over time, they're going to try to stretch and see how far they can get into, their own world, which I think is natural and healthy.
It's good.
Yes.
It's good.
I think where our job is to set boundaries that they can grow in, but also are safe within. And which is, I love what you said, Jace, of being able to let James have room to skin his knee.
Mm-hmm.
You're not hovering over him so much that he can't go explore, learn,
Exactly.
experience some adversity, make mistakes, but you're not going to let him go play on the yellow line in the road.
No, absolutely not.
And so there are boundaries that are healthy that let them stake their flag in places that they should, and then places where they shouldn't. You still draw that line and say, no, like this is not, and you do it because you care about them, because you want them to develop into people who can run their own household, their own family in a healthy way. So,
and the way that you're going to see that right now, you've got two kids that are not good at communicating because they're young.
Yeah.
We have kids that are not good at communicating because
they're
stubborn and stupid, right?
Yeah.
No, but so the way you're going to see small kids rebel to something like that is it'll look like they are throwing a temper tantrum or something. They'll throw a toy, or they'll start crying or something like that. It's because they don't know how to verbally communicate.
Yeah, their emotions. They don't know how to express their emotions, and we're seeing that with James, and honestly, Madeline started the other day of
the girls are going to start it sooner.
If you leave her in a situation she doesn't want to be in, she's going to let you know.
Yeah,
but she's also a lot more vocal too. But no, James he's in that 2 to 3 is a very emotional, like not knowing how to control emotions. Like he's upset, so he's going to throw something, or he's upset,
or take a swing at you.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, like legit, man.
Yeah.
I don't know that, but
no,
I'm just telling you. I remember.
I remember my oldest, like, I learned quickly that, like, a spanking or something like that, which if you don't believe in spanking, I don't care.
You're on.
But,
I'm just kidding.
um,
I'm just kidding.
but
Boys, it's necessary.
a little like spanking him, it didn't matter.
Yeah.
Like he was just like, you want to do that
Come
again?
at me, bro. Yeah.
And then, like, there were times where I would spank him and he'd swing at me. And I'm like, dude, like, I know you're 3, but hey,
Come at me.
I'm kidding. But he would. I mean, like, but what I learned with him was if you took something away from him, oh my gosh, it was like you just ruined his whole world. And so having to learn how to discipline each one different and, what gets their attention and what doesn't and that kind of thing, I think it was part of the whole learning process. And they were all different. And so
for sure. Yeah.
It's interesting with my 22-year-old now. It's like I sort of wait and let him come to me.
That's where you're at. That's the season you're in right now.
He's a man.
Yep.
When he needs me, I let him come to me, and I'll do whatever I can do to help. My 18-year-old who's about to move out, I'm a little more vocal in his life. There's still times where I'm like, you better get this straight,
and see, and you don't know when that's going to change.
Yeah.
Like you didn't know when that was going to change for Dake. You know, that's where you are now.
Yeah.
And you would have to really search back through and figure out, okay, when did that transition happen?
Yeah.
Right.
And,
when
and
did that season
change? When he went
change?
to college, so he moved off for about a year and then came back to Southern. That was when it changed a lot. And we talked probably every single day while he was at school. And there were a lot of questions and a lot of struggles and challenges he went through during that. With my middle son, Jackson, like, there's very few times that I have to be real firm with him. He's just a good-hearted, natured kid that he wants to do right. Now my 14-year-old, Reed, if you've ever met him, you understand. He's just hard-headed. And so he and I, man, like, we won't come to blows, but it's like he's another. I got 2 redheads, and man, like, I'm like, dude, I will knock the red out of your hair if you don't, And it's like, just because he's just wired that way. He's gonna try to argue with me if I say it's foggy outside. He's gonna be like, "Nah, Dad, that's just smoke," and I'll be like, "No, that's fog." And then he's gonna be like, "No, Dad, that's smoke." I'm be like, "You're a moron."
You're wrong.
Yeah, and so, but yeah, but he's a lot of fun too, man. And so they've all got their own personalities, but he's fun and but just hard headed, and he got that from his mom, of course, and that's very sarcastic.
I was about to say
he got that 100% from me, yeah. And so, but yeah, it's just different. So, yeah,
I love it. I mean, I really do. I love the hard parts. I love the fun parts. Obviously, everybody loves the fun parts.
Yeah.
But I love the hard parts. I love looking back on. I love looking back on things that I prayed for my kids, and then seeing that stuff. Seeing the Lord answer prayers.
Yeah.
And listen, there have been numerous times where He's answered prayers in ways that I wasn't necessarily thinking He would.
Yeah.
But I still I see it as an answered prayer because he still provided what I was hoping for. Man, it was just way different than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah. And the one thing as a parent too you can't expect is perfection. Like, we're not perfect, they're not going to be. But helping them learn through the bad choices as well, and I think is super important, and because they're going to make them, and I think we help them grow into the people that we want them to become, that the Lord wants them to become, by helping them understand their bad choices as much as them getting it right all the time.
Yeah.
And that's something that we've seen as our boys have gotten older is, all right, that wasn't a great choice. So
let's learn from it and let's adjust
and move on. And we're not going to just harp on that as far as we're going to deal with it, and that's going to be it. And
y'all keep talking. I'm going to take him out real quick.
Okay. And so yeah, that part's challenging because it kind of hurts your heart when something doesn't go the way you feel like it should with them, but then having to regroup and go, okay, what do we learn from this? Is super important. So
yeah, I think the hard part too is like you see the train wreck about to happen.
Yeah.
And the solution, but giving them enough grace and distance to make that decision on their own. And then, like you're saying, kind of have a debrief afterwards. Mm-hmm. Like, hey, probably could have done it this way and it'd been a little better.
And certainly not letting them walk off a cliff.
No, absolutely.
But like the great example is, and a simple example is go skin your knee.
Yeah.
You
go run on the asphalt and
let them learn that when you do fall and skin your knee, like I'm not going to be there to just say, I told you so.
Right.
You can run to me, not from me.
Exactly.
And I think that's important that they know if I make a mistake, I don't have to run from.
Yeah.
I can go to.
Yeah. We got a $35 slip and slide from Walmart this weekend. So James and I, we were tasked. Tara had some stuff she was doing Saturday morning. So James and I went and got some stuff from the great establishment of Wally World.
Oh boy.
That was an adventure all in itself, but you have a 2.5-year-old in Walmart. It's just grabbing and trying to get all the things, but
he's the most mature person there.
Yeah, 1,000%, and well dressed. Oh my gosh! Either way, we walk in there with the goal was to find some form of slip and slide, something that holds water.
Yeah, and
we walk around. We go to the outdoor section. We go to the actual outdoor, like gardening and where you would think some outdoor like equipment would be. You ask someone that works there, they don't know where anything is either. So ended up being in the seasonal, and I get over there and it's like the last slip and slide. They got like one little kiddie pool and then like this like slip and slide with a pool and a slide and a shoot nozzle thingamajigger. And while we're walking around, James picks up like a wiffle ball bat and a ball because one of the dogs chewed up one. So we got him that. And but we got him this slip and slide, and we get it all back to the house. We had made a pit stop and got some worms and crickets too, because we wanted to fish as well. So I was like, all right, James, what do you want to do? Well, and he's like, well, I think this is in James terms, but he's like, I was like, you want to slip and slide, or you want to go catch some fish with worms and crickets? And he's like, worms and crickets. I said, all right, well, you want to go fishing? And then he'd like change his mind. He's like, he made his mind up on worms and crickets, and then I think he looked back at the little box with the slip and slide, and he's like, no, it's slip and slide. So we get slip and slide, and it's funny, like when we first busted out, like you can see him testing the water literally. And I mean, by the end of the day, like he was like tiptoeing in it, trying to figure it out. By the end of the day, he's like running circles and doing cannonballs and like, so giving him, like we're talking about, the freedom, because there was a couple times he made some slips and it looked like it hurt, and he'd come crying, but about 5 minutes later he'd be back at it and figuring it out. But it's just giving him that, not putting him on a leash, but letting him kind of come and go and figure it out and do all that stuff. So it's fun. It's a fun season for sure.
Yeah, that's good stuff. I've been reading a book. It's written by a Christian guy. It's not necessarily a Christian book, but the name of the book is called Strength to Strength. And it's about transition from sort of your earlier years in life to how do you find success happiness, that kind of thing in the second half of life, because I'm about to be 50 in October. So, and I'm kind of sensing transition in my own life. And so one of the things he said was he had either 2 or 3 children. And he said he sat down and he wrote out the 3 most important things he wanted for his children. And he said, like, to be honorable, or faith, to be honorable, and then there was something else, you know. And so then he said, how much of my time am I allotting to invest in them so that these 3 things are actually true of them? And I thought that was like a really intentional, smart, wise, whatever way of being able to shape and mold your children into the people they should be, and what God wants them to become. And I thought that was really interesting, and in that, being able to mold them that way. The other thing, and this is what I'm sensing in a transition that I'm in, as I'm approaching 50, is, you know, all my life I've been what he would call a striver, you know, and I know you're that way, you're that way, where you want to always build something. You want to always, you know, you're always pushing for the next thing. And there's a lot of research that shows most of what you do as far as achievement actually comes from the work you do in your 20s and 30s. So sort of like the life work that you accomplish may happen in your 40s or 50s, but it's due to what you did in your 20s and 30s, because that's when you're gaining knowledge and that's when you're experiencing things. And as you begin to shift from that, you know, and he said it happens as early as sometimes in your late 30s, but especially by the time you're in your early 50s, there's a lot of research that supports that if you're going to be successful in the second half of your life, you have to make a shift from the striver, doer, and gaining knowledge. Not that you ever quit learning. That's not what he's saying, but to a place of more like a sage. You're the one who is pouring into other people who are where you were. And that's an important transition to be able to make as you get older in life, because you begin to decline. I mean, it just is what it is. And I don't want to admit that any more than anybody else, but I know that the drive I had when I was 25 is very different than the drive I have at 50. But I want to be able to spend, I don't think it's the second half of my life. I don't think I'm making it to 100. But I want to be able to spend these years making the best investment I can. And I do believe that that is going to be more investing in people than it is investing in what I'm putting my hands on as far as work, you know. And so I think that's an interesting transition that you're still quite a ways away from.
Yeah, for sure.
But as for you and I, like, and I know you're intentional with the guys who work here in the shop, like, how do I pour wisdom into them, and being really intentional in making the transition of now it's me building or me gaining knowledge or me doing to now, how do I invest in other people so that they are able to do what God wants them to do. And I just thought that was it was really helpful for me to help me understand where I am, you know, and the ability to even take a little pressure off of me from feeling like, gosh, I'm kind of suck at what I'm doing in life, you know, but realizing, okay, there's kind of a different purpose in my life now. Not necessarily to drive things as much as give wisdom on how to do things. And
Yeah,
so,
you're no longer in the driver's seat per se. You're in the passenger seat giving directions on.
I'm a backseat driver,
Yeah,
basically.
exactly.
No, let's put you in the front seat.
I'd say at least the passenger seat.
Let's let you be the navigator / DJ.
That's
okay?
right. Yeah,
There you go.
Because whoever's riding shotgun, your responsibility is to make sure you don't get lost and to play good music.
Yep.
If you can't do one of those things, get in the back seat.
And you got to be able to use the Google machine pretty effectively, because there's times where it's like, all right, where's a good restaurant? It's like, well, crap, I got 3 seconds to put that together.
There you go. You just type food.
Food, yeah. Food near me. So, no, I think that's awesome perspective. I'm not obviously in that season, but it's cool to hear you talk about that. And I mean, hashtag goals, you know what I mean? That's something that we can it just looking forward to that time, but I don't want to cut the time that I have right now short, because like you're saying, like right now, the groundwork is being put in for the reward down the way. So,
And the reality is, in your 20s and 30s, and I agree with what you're saying. In your 20s and 30s, you're laying a lot of groundwork. You're laying a lot of foundations. Yep. Listen, you might be doing something in your 40s that is completely altogether different than what you were actually physically, tactically doing in your 20s and 30s.
Yep.
But that doesn't mean that what you went through in your 20s and 30s didn't help you get to where you are right now.
Wasted.
Yeah.
So running a business in my 20s did not. It has only helped me lead a church in my 30s, 40s, and now almost 50s.
Yeah.
It didn't. It certainly didn't take away. It
absolutely.
added value to being able to do that.
Yep. Yeah, you got to learn a lot of things that otherwise you were not going to learn.
Yeah.
You got to have those stressful days and stressful nights. Yep. Those times when you were like, man, am I going to make payroll this week? I got this big job coming up, but I hadn't been paid for this last job, but I got to get these materials ordered. I got to figure out how I'm going to do this.
I'm going to have to hire somebody to go get that invoice paid,
Yeah.
Yeah. I have to go rough somebody up.
All right, easy. It wasn't that long ago. Easy. Yeah, I mean, but all those things are, build us to where we're going and help us get to that point. The sad thing that I've noticed, and I know that you guys have noticed this too, wisdom and age don't always go together.
Yeah.
And
so true.
And you'll have this older guy. Just me saying that, every one of us thought about this older guy that we know that the wisdom hasn't followed.
Yeah.
And you look at it and you're like, man, what happened? Where was a decision made, or a series of decisions made where that wisdom didn't come? And sometimes it's easy to put your finger on it. Sometimes it's not that easy to put your finger on it, because, it's we could be really good about holding our cards really close to our chest and people not know what's really going on in your life. Sometimes you just get defeated by something and you never overcome it for whatever reason. You get hung up on that thing and it becomes an anchor in your life, and you're anchored to something that happened 20 years ago instead of having your anchor in heaven where it's supposed to be. Like what we've talked about. Jace, you've said it several times this morning, talking about milestones and these mile markers that we go through in life. And as we're talking about going through transitions and going through seasons in parenting, seasons in marriage, seasons in our careers, hunting seasons that we get to go through, there's all these markers along the way that help us become better if we will allow them to help us become better. The reality is, it probably was a terrible situation. The things that help us grow the most probably were not comfortable. Something that we didn't enjoy, something that didn't turn out exactly like we wanted it to. Right. Now, it's easy to talk about that from a hunting perspective. I was turkey hunting and this happened, and man, I just didn't get that bird, and I'm disappointed, But we won't really get hung up on that.
That's right.
But when something happens in life that doesn't go the way we wanted it to, we'll let that, we'll get really hung up on that, and we'll get chained to it. And I think that's what will cause us to, our age is going to continue to grow. Absolutely. If we're alive We're gonna get older.
Yep.
That's just the way it works. There's no way to stop that clock. I don't care what the commercial says about what's in that bottle that you can put on your face or that you can put in your body. It's not stopping the clock.
That's right.
Okay. Now I think it's good to be healthy. I think it's good to do things to take care of your body, but you're still going to age.
Yeah.
Your drive's still different today than it was when you were 25. Just like you talked about.
You can nip it, tuck it, stuff it, whatever, but it's still gonna sag. Eventually,
That's right. That's so true.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's very vivid. Yeah, yeah. But
He shook it.
you got me on that one. You got me. I'll admit, you got me. But how do we get to that point where we identify those things? Like in the book that you talked about, Strength to Strength, he gave very objective things to look at, right? How do we get to that spot where we look at things in a very objective way? Yeah. One of the ways to do that is to have people in your life that are going to be, number one, people in your life that you're going to be transparent with.
Yes.
I don't mean very transparent. You're either transparent or you are not. Okay? That's it. So who do you have in your life that you're willing to share things with that they're going to help you go through it?
Yeah.
You got to have that.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about a dozen people. I'm not talking about 30 people. I'm talking about like one or two.
And that he even talks about that in the book. He's like, you've got to have 1, 2, 3 people in your life that you can be that vulnerable with. That, and he talks about the importance of relationships, which I'm not a great I'm relationally just awkward in a lot of ways until I get to know somebody. But like you have to have those people. There's just no way around it. Like we're created for community, and I can't become all that I'm supposed to be without people, and people can't become all they're supposed to be without me. It's like some people, and so that's so true.
And we're on the topic of transition, like those people that we're talking about being transparent with and best friends with and all those things, those transition over time too. Like those change with seasons and kids and before kids and then after kids and all the things. So being able to find your community is super, super important. And like I mentioned earlier with the small group we've got on Wednesday, like we've got kind of a mixed bag of guys that are kind of in the season of we got single guys, we got guys that are engaged, and we got guys that are married, and then we got guys that are married with kids. So we kind of got the whole spectrum, but being able to kind of pour into each other, even where you are individually, really allows having that transparency or just a time for us as guys to just talk through being in the crap. Like I think for us, I know for me, I like to stuff. Like I like to stuff the stress or the whatever I've got. I like to stuff it, and I don't really like to share it all the time. But having that, creating an environment to have that opportunity to share is super important. And it's just good to kind of work through that. And if we put ourselves on the island thinking, well, this is something that I'm just going through, whereas like your brother in Christ across the table, he just went through that 6 months ago, or 5 years ago, and he knows the end result, but you don't see it because you're in the thick of it. And
the other 3 guys that are,
they don't even know that's a thing.
Yeah, the other 3 guys that haven't gotten there yet, they're watching.
Absolutely. So that was really cool last night. We had a couple of moments like that last night in group, and creating those type of environments or experiences super, super important in that season. So
and speaking of, like, I'm actually meeting with a friend of mine who we've been through all kinds of things together over the last 26 years. I'm actually meeting with him today.
Oh, cool.
And just to talk through some of the stuff that I've been reading and just to process and, what does this really look like? Like, I understand the concept, but what does this look like, to do this? And I think, that's important to be able to do. The other thing you were talking about, John, is people who we can think of who just never entered into that place of being the wise person who is able to give other people insight. I think some of that happens because we refuse to make the transition. So we don't want to go from striver to mentor because we feel like we're losing something or we're afraid of what we'll lose. He talks a lot about being afraid of losing respect, being afraid of losing position, being afraid of losing sort of the spotlight.
Yeah, I mean, we don't want people messing with our cheese,
Yeah, yes. Who stole my cheese?
Yeah,
that book. I remember reading that years ago, and it's that whole thing is, if we're not willing to make that transition, it is going to affect our joy, and our purpose.
Mm-hmm.
So even more important. So.
Yeah, I think it's another one of those things where you don't know when it's going to happen.
Mm-mm.
You don't know when it's, you don't know when when you're going to transition from being the primary driver to supporting the group of primary drivers.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and I think I don't know. I think it's just something that we should talk through, that we should acknowledge that, hey, this is a thing.
Yeah.
How do we position ourselves to be in this place where we're, not just hoping for growth, but we're expecting it to happen.
Yeah.
And I think being in a church is so important.
Yep.
Because outside of that community, I think it's just so easy to just be floundering in world.
Yeah, you just go through the motions for
that
75 years.
The world's just going to toss you around like a rag doll too. I mean, there's no moral compass. There's no true north. So that you're just going to be pulled in all the different directions. When y'all were just talking, thinking about transitions, it really made me think about the disciples.
Mm-hmm.
You had guys that were fishing and had Jesus come and say, "Follow me." They dropped what they were doing. Well, that morning they were fishermen. Well, after that, they dropped what they were doing, and they had a period of time they were with Jesus. So they were in the transition from fishermen to now I'm being discipled. I'm learning from the Creator. Then we just had Easter. You have the death and the resurrection, and now you have guys that over a 3-year period they were learning and they were being poured into. Well, now Jesus is died and is the right hand of God. Now the Holy Spirit's come down, and the deployment of, hey, go to make disciples of all nations. So they went from fishermen to a season of learning and discipleship, and now a go make disciples of all nations, go grow the church. And you look at that as a seasonality of they didn't know what that was going to look like if you asked them. So I think we can look at the Bible and how godly men took that transition and how they adjusted. Did they make mistakes? Absolutely. They're human. And did they miss a lot of the things? And we have a great perspective because we can see it from a 30,000 foot view.
Right.
But I think there's times where we kick ourselves for not being able to see the big picture, but it's okay. I think in the end, I think as long as we keep the main thing, and we focus on Christ and know that He is lighting the path before us, we're gonna have seasons of doubt or seasons of this and that. But I think if we can look at examples, that gives us excitement for what is to come.
And I think understanding too, circumstances can change in a moment. Transitions happen over time. So the circumstances for the disciples when they were called to become fishers of men and follow Jesus, the circumstance changed immediately. But the transition from fishermen to, fishers of men was something that took them 3 years to really begin to even grasp a little bit of.
And even then, even till the end, I mean, they still had no idea what. Jesus is telling them, "Hey, I'm going to die," and no, you're not. Everything's good.
Yeah, they just couldn't get it.
No.
Right. So, you've got that verse in John where it says Jesus wept, right, and he's there to see Martha and Mary and what's going on with Lazarus. Lazarus died, and he's been dead for 4 days and in the tomb. And he wept in that moment because, all right, so they sent word to him and he delayed going. He didn't go when they sent word saying he was sick, and he did that to help his disciples believe. And a lot of other people that were there. He did it to put the wheels in motion to, lead to his crucifixion, because that gave some pretty firm footing to the Sanhedrin that wanted to take him out. But he wept because, I just, in my mind's eye, I picture him looking at his disciples and realizing that they don't get it. Everything I've said to them about that I came into this world to pay the price. They don't get it. They still think I'm here to overthrow Rome.
Right.
And I truly believe that's why he cried. That's why he wept, was because he was overwhelmed with the fact that he was trying to help them understand, and their human flesh stayed in the way.
Yeah. And I think that's the nature of any transition as well, is we never see everything that's happening. So that's where I think faith has to come in. Absolutely. Is I'm going to trust in the midst of not fully understanding. Like, the meantime is the most difficult time.
And the benefit is it's not a blind faith.
Right.
It's not just some whimsical hope that we have. Right. So I read a story this week in Daniel. So Nebuchadnezzar has these dreams, and he's become an insomniac. He can't sleep anymore because these dreams have taken his sleep. And so he calls all of his Chaldeans and magicians and all these people before him and says, I want you to tell me, what in the world is my phone doing? I'm sorry. I want you to tell me my dream, and then I want you to interpret my dream for me. Well, they couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And I don't know, the dynamic. I don't know the relationship or the situation he had with them or whatever, but I don't think he fully trusted them. I think he thought they were full of crap, right? Duh. Yeah, they were. And, so they go back to him and say, listen, there's nobody that can do this. Only the gods know, little g, gods know, the dreams of men, and gods don't live in men. Gods are not flesh. And then Daniel gets an audience with the king and says, hey, if you'll give me till tomorrow, I'll tell you what this dream is.
Yeah.
And Nebuchadnezzar's like, you're just stalling, you're not gonna be able to do this. I mean, they'd already started killing these guys.
Yeah.
Before Daniel gets before him. And then so he reaches out his golden scepter and boops Daniel and says, okay, I'll see you tomorrow, bro. Right. That's my version of how it went.
Yeah.
You don't find that. You don't find that in the text. That's the John Keene.
You booped people.
Yeah. You boop people with the scepter.
Okay,
that's blessing. Cool. Boop. Right. And then Daniel goes and gets his.
Time I'm praying for somebody, I'm just gonna
You're so weird. Anyway, one of us is weird. We're all weird. Anyway, Daniel goes and gets his closest friends and says, "We have to pray, and God will provide. God will show us." Right, and the Lord provided. His faith was, God's gonna do this. He's gonna provide this for us. And then he goes and meets with Nebuchadnezzar the next day. All right, hold on. Before that, and this is in Daniel 2, you can go and read it. So he goes, they get together and they pray, and then the next morning Daniel gets up and he knows what the dream is. He knows the interpretation of the dream. He may have dreamed the exact same dream. I don't know how the Lord gave it to him. The first thing Daniel does is praise God.
Yeah.
That's the first thing he does. So I tell that story to say, and then he goes and tells Nebuchadnezzar what the dream is, and tells him the dream, and then he interprets the dream, and none of it is good, right? None of what he's getting ready to tell the king is good.
Yeah.
All right. Now, we're done with that part of the story. Now let's look at how we apply it to our lives today. How often or how good are we at having true faith that God's going to answer our prayer? Right? And then when he does, how good are we at immediately praising him for it?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, to me, wisdom doesn't come apart from that. You know, it just doesn't. If wisdom, all right. So if we go through life and we think everything that we've done is due to our effort and is results of what we have put in, and it's all us, you're gaining no wisdom through that. I hate to break it to you, but we're not going to gain any wisdom from that.
Right.
You know, because we think we got this.
Yeah.
So if you think you got it all the time, you know, how in the world are you going to grow?
Yeah.
You know, you think you have no room for growth.
Right.
So my base question there is, how do we put feet to our faith and our belief and our hope and say we can trust God, you know, to do this. And I'm not saying mama's sick, okay, I'm going to pray and God's going to heal her. That is not what I'm saying. That's not what this is. Okay. But how do I have faith in God and do so in a tangible, real way?
I think some of it comes from life experience, like God's proven himself faithful over time.
And listen, if you're not keeping a record of that, if you're not keeping up with it, I mean, I don't know about you, but I forget stuff really easily.
Yeah.
Right. And if I don't keep a record of what's going on, what he's doing, I'll give you an example without sharing any names or any details. A couple of years ago, had a just a terrible situation with a person, and I mean, it just wasn't good. Yeah. You know, there was no part of it that was good. Everything that surrounded it. And, you know, there was some anger on my part. You know, I was pretty upset about how some things had shaken out, and I was, you know, I had the opportunity to get hung up on that. Right. And I remember distinctly praying, God, I need you to release me of this. I need to put this behind me. And it wasn't a situation where it was something that I was going to get hung up on because of there being lasting ramifications from it or anything like that. It was like a hurt, I guess, would be the best way to put it. Like, this person hurt me, I want to hurt them, right? Absolutely. I mean, that's kind of like our natural tendency. I mean, truly, the flesh, that's the flesh's natural tendency. Somebody hurts me, I'm going to hurt them.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know what it's going to look like. I don't know how I'm going to do it. I don't know if I'm going to physically hurt them or if I'm going to,
Verbally.
verbally abuse them or gossip about them or whatever.
Tesla.
Yeah. I mean, all these different ways that can manifest itself, right? I distinctly remember praying, God, I want to forgive because I don't want to be hung up on this. And I want the best for this person. I don't wish ill against them because if I did, then I'm still tied to that. I'm still kind of watching. Okay. The other foot's going to drop. I'm going to sit here and watch this. That's not a good place to be. And listen, I'm not coming at this saying, boy, look at how good I am, because I'm not. Okay. Don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying I'm good and I'm wonderful and I did everything the right way. That's not who I am. I am a sinner. I fall short every single day. I have to repent of something every day. Every day I catch myself in something and I have to repent of it. Yeah. All right. So fast forward, 2 years, I get a phone call from somebody, and this guy, I know him, but I don't know him really well, and he calls me. He says, "Hey, John," and I said, "Hey, man, how you doing?" And he said, "You got a minute?" I said, "Yeah, sure. What's going on?" And he said, I needed to call you and apologize to you." I said, "Okay, what happened? What are you apologizing for?" And he said, "I cast judgment on you that I shouldn't have." I said, "Okay." I said, and he explained the situation. Things were said, and he believed the things that were said, even though we knew each other well enough for him to know,
character.
That wasn't who I was.
Yeah.
And he said, "I cast judgment on you." He said, I said things about you I should have never said. And I want to apologize to you for that. And I said, "Man, listen," I said, I accept your apology. I forgive you. I don't know what was said, what was done. I appreciate you reaching out to me and everything. And that was part of what I asked God to release me of, because I knew the character of the person. I knew that there was going to be a lot of squawking, right?
Yep.
I knew that there was going to be things said that probably were not true, because when you do something wrong, you paint a picture of how you didn't do anything wrong. So and because 2 years ago I said, "God, I trust you to handle this. I'm not thinking about this anymore."
Yes.
Right. But I can't do this unless you move in and help me, because me and my flesh, I'm going to think about it. I'm going to dwell on it. It's going to be a thought that I have. I'm going to be curious about it. And I'm telling you, I never even thought about it anymore.
Yeah.
Outside of, I'd pray for the individual a little bit because I truly do want the best for him. Yeah. I truly do want the best for him. And I would pray for him every now and then, but that was it. And then to get that phone call, I'm like, I get off the phone and I pull my journal out and I just write a praise to God, thanking him for not thanking him for, any deterioration that's happened between those two individuals, because that's not my prayer. I don't want that to happen. But thanking him for going ahead of me and protecting me. Yeah, right.
That's good.
Even though it was 2 years later, he pointed out that, he moved in this person's life enough to the point where this guy calls and is like, "Man, I was wrong."
Yeah.
And that's not natural.
I was going to say that's
not natural.
That's big of that person.
I praise the Lord for the work that he's doing in his life. Not only for the protection that he gave to me, answering my prayer from 2 years ago, but for the work that he's doing in this individual's life.
Right.
Because that was not a natural thing for him to do.
No.
Right. So, and I say all that, and I'll go back to say, I'm not perfect. I don't do things in a perfect way. None of us do. But how do we get to that place where we're gonna become intentional about saying, my hope is in something that's real and alive. Yeah. My faith is in truth, right? And then put our feet to it.
Yeah.
It's it is critically important that we do that.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Well, if that's not where our hope is, then we have none.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, if we do, it's fake.
Yeah.
It's superficial. It's certainly not something we would die for.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway,
That's good stuff.
we'll kill it there. Hope you guys enjoyed. We got off cadence a little bit this week.
Yeah.
But it's okay. This will post today. So, and we'll get back on track for next week. So, appreciate everybody. Thanks for joining us on the podcast today. I hope you enjoyed listening. Hey, reach out to us and let us know what you want to hear about. Join the conversation online. Hop over on your favorite social channel and give us some comments. Shoot us an email. You can email us at podcast@bowtreader.com. That's BOWTREADER.com. We'd love to hear from you. Love to hear about maybe if you want to come join us on the podcast or any kind of topics that you want us to cover, regardless of what it is. If it's hunting related, something that's specific to bows or arrows, new gear, old gear, if you got any kind of spiritual questions, anything about your faith that you're interested in, reach out to us and let us know. We'd love to cover it for you. And thank you again so much for listening. God bless you.